From People, former MTV VJ Ananda Lewis says her cancer has spread after she decided to keep my tumor, quote unquote. The former talk show host reflected on her decision to go against her doctor's recommendation for a mastectomy after her 2020 breast cancer diagnosis. I thought I had this. She shared that her breast cancer has metastasized and is now stage 4. Lewis, 51, previously shared that she'd been diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer in a 2020 Instagram post, saying that she'd refused mammograms for years due to a fear of radiation exposure. My plan at first was to get out excessive toxins in my body. I felt like my body is intelligent. I know that to be true. Our bodies are brilliantly made, Lewis explained. Yes, our bodies are so brilliantly made that it is susceptible to our cells growing abnormally and spreading uncontrollably. Our bodies are so brilliantly made that we rely on one organ pumping blood into our system, and should that organ ever feel like giving out, it is game over for us. I decided to keep my tumor and try to work it out of my body a different way, she shared. Looking back at that, I go, you know what, maybe I should have. Here's another quote. I was like, fudge, man. Yes, she actually said fudge. I really thought I had this. I was frustrated. I was a little angry at myself, and I said, man, listen, I know you're coming for me at some point, but I don't want it to be now, and if you could just wait, I promise when you do come, I'm gonna make it fun for you. I literally had that conversation laying in my bed. I couldn't get out of bed for like 8 weeks, she said. The saddest part about this is, had she received the treatment recommended by medical professionals, she probably would not be in this situation right now. Stage 3 breast cancer may not be curable, but it is absolutely treatable. From the National Breast Cancer Foundation, the 5-year relative survival rate for stage 3 breast cancer is 86%. This means at the end of 5 years, 86% of women diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer will have survived. When it comes to cancer, I don't fuck around at all. A scary amount of people on my mother's side of the family have gotten cancer. Quite a few have died from it. My mother could get cancer someday. My uncles could get cancer someday. I could get cancer someday. My maternal grandmother died from a very aggressive form of cancer back in 2020. Now, that wasn't her first rodeo with cancer. Back in 2005, she also had cancer as well. It was colon cancer. I forget exactly which stage it was. I was only 4 at the time. But basically, it was a coin flip whether or not she would survive. Had she instead decided to reject the treatment and surgery recommended to her by her doctor, she would not have bought another 15 years of life. She would have died when I was 4 or 5. I would have barely remembered her, and all of the memories of her from my childhood and teen years that I cherish oh so much would have never occurred. And who knows how many years of life this Ananda lady potentially scratched off because she decided to keep her tumor because she trusted her brilliantly designed body to just flush it out on its own, I guess. I'm sorry, but our bodies are not brilliantly designed. We're prone to disease, terminal illness, and our bodies failing in many different fatal ways. We're like beat-up cars that need constant upkeep. And this is why I have pretty much no patience when it comes to bullshit alternative treatment, alternative medicine, because this is almost always the outcome. The patient may initially have something that is totally treatable and survivable, then they reject what medical professionals say. They instead turn to pseudoscience bullshit that proves to do nothing in the end ultimately, and then when their condition inevitably gets worse and the looming threat of death grows ever more, that's when they regret their decision and are like, damn, maybe I should have listened to the professionals. Look, I get it. The pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry in general fucking suck. These shouldn't be industries to begin with. They want to put high price tags on life-saving medication, life-saving treatment, and surgery because they value money more than human life. And that's where I direct my anger towards, the predatory executives that want to make a profit at the expense of human life. But so many people in this country, and world in general frankly, have misplaced distrust and instead want to be angry at their doctors and modern medicine, and believe in the most bullshit conspiracy theories like vaccines can give your kids autism, and therefore it is justified to let your kid die of polio like it's 1920 again, because at least they didn't contract autism. Even though autism is obviously something you can't just contract, this has been debunked to hell and back, but it doesn't matter to these types of people. It's like the COVID vaccine when it first rolled out during the pandemic, yet so many of these people refusing to take it because they thought it contained nanochips or something asinine to that effect. And then you saw all of these people contracting COVID and overloading overcrowding hospitals because they didn't want to take the vaccine, and yet these anti-vaxxers don't stop to think for a second that maybe there is a correlation between the two. There are certain things your body just can't naturally fight against. This is your life on the line, and stop playing around with your life. I don't believe I've ever shared this in a video before. I know for a fact I've shared this in some streams, but one of the uncles that I live with had a stroke back in July. He spent a month in the hospital and has been in a rehabilitation center since August, and he is slowly learning how to walk again and may never use his right arm again. This didn't just happen out of nowhere. This happened because he had diabetes but preferred listening to hucksters like Dr. Oz telling him that he didn't need to take his blood pressure medication, and instead take whatever bullshit medicine he was peddling, instead of listening to his actual fucking doctor, who was flat out fucking telling him that he was on his way to a stroke or a heart attack. And I also have no patience for all of these influencers and TV show hosts telling their audience to not trust modern medicine, don't trust their doctors, instead trust them and their pseudoscience bullshit. I don't care, throw them in prison and they should be seen as no different from a fucking serial killer. Because they may not be physically there aiming a gun to their victim's head and pulling the trigger, but they are still instrumental to the deaths of so many people. And they don't care one bit that they're killing people, because so long as they can make a good profit off of what they're doing, that is all that matters to them. Evil pieces of shit. And I view this Ananda woman as a victim. She wholeheartedly believed that her alternative treatment would work, but instead of her cancer improving, it only worsened. And this is unfortunately the story of so many people. They're taught not to trust their doctors and modern medicine, and instead turn to pseudoscience garbage that does nothing to improve their condition, and their regret only comes when it's too late. Don't needlessly throw away your life by listening to bullshit peddlers, and don't only learn your lesson when you inevitably face the fatal consequences. They can be avoided easily. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Bye-bye.